The Galactic Council station floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was a massive ring of metal and glass, home to hundreds of alien species who came here to argue, trade, and sometimes threaten each other. Today, in a private chamber far from the main halls, a decision was being made that would change everything. High Commander Torvin stood before a holographic display, his armored body clicking softly as he moved. He was Velthari, a species that looked like giant insects wrapped in natural bone armor. His eyes, dark and without warmth, studied the image rotating before him. It showed a human research vessel called the Horizon's Edge. "These humans expand too quickly," Torvin said. His voice was sharp, like stones grinding together. "They have taken 17 systems in the outer territories. Systems that should belong to the Dominion." The other Velthari officers in the room shifted nervously. They knew their commander's moods. When he spoke this quietly, he was most dangerous. "We cannot attack them directly," one officer said. "The Council would punish us. Humans have too many allies now." Torvin's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "I did not say we would attack. I said we would teach them their place." He touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed a creature that made even the Velthari officers step back. The KTH Irani. It was a predator from one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Even as a young cub, it was terrifying. 6 powerful legs. Scales that could stop a blade. Eyes that glowed like dying stars. Fangs filled with venom that could kill in minutes. The Kethrani were monsters that even the Velthari feared. "We captured this one 3 cycles ago," Torvin explained. "It is young, not fully grown, but it is enough." He turned to face his officers. "We will place it aboard the human vessel. When it awakens, it will hunt. It will kill. And when the humans run screaming, when they prove themselves to be the weak, soft creatures we know they are, the Council will see that they are not fit to hold territory. And if the humans destroy it?" An officer asked. "Then we will say they killed an endangered species. Either way, we win." The officers nodded slowly. It was a cruel plan. A clever plan. The kind of plan that had made the Velthari feared across the galaxy. None of them understood how badly it would fail. Far across the station, in the human diplomatic quarters, Ambassador Yuna was working late. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. 20 years of representing humanity among aliens had taught her to notice things others missed. Tonight, she had noticed unusual Velthari activity, supply movements, encrypted communications. A research vessel being prepared in secret? Something was happening, and the Velthari did not want anyone to know. She pressed a button on her desk. A holographic communication screen appeared. "Horizon's Edge, this is Ambassador Yuna, Priority Channel." After a moment, a man's face appeared. Captain Taiwan was in his 50s, with gray at his temples and a calm expression that rarely changed. He commanded the research vessel with quiet confidence. "Ambassador, it's late for a social call." "It's not social." Yuna leaned forward. "I have no proof, but my instincts tell me something is wrong. The Velthari are planning something. I think it might involve your ship." Taiwan's expression did not change, but his eyes grew more focused. "What kind of something?" "I don't know. That's what worries me. Just ... Be careful. Watch for anything unusual. Anything at all." "Understood. I'll alert my security chief." After the call ended, Yuna sat in the darkness of her office. She had done what she could. She only hoped it would be enough. Aboard the Horizon's Edge, life continued as normal. The ship moved through space on its way to study a newly discovered planet. 63 crew members worked, ate, slept, and dreamed of home. Lieutenant Jia ran security drills. She was tall and strong, a former ground soldier who had seen real combat. Her face carried a small scar above her left eye, a reminder of battles fought and survived. When Captain Taiwan told her about the ambassador's warning, she simply nodded and doubled the patrol schedule. Dr. Doan spent his days in the xenobiology lab, surrounded by samples and research equipment. He was a gentle man who loved studying alien life forms. Every new creature was a mystery waiting to be solved. He had no idea that the greatest mystery of his career was already on its way to him. And in the hydroponics bay, young Ensign Miri tended to the plants that kept the ship's air fresh and helped feed the crew. She was barely 25, quiet and kind, with a habit of talking to her plants when she thought no one was listening. The other crew members found it charming. Miri just found it peaceful. None of them knew what was coming. In the darkness of space, a Velthari stealth pod detached from a hidden ship. It was small enough to avoid detection, fast enough to catch the horizon's edge, and inside it carried something that growled, the pod attached to the human vessel's hull with barely a sound. Magnetic clamps locked into place. A cutting laser began to work on the metal, slowly, carefully, opening a hole just large enough for a container to pass through. Inside that container, the Kathrani cub pressed against the walls of its prison. It was hungry. It was frightened. It had been taken from its mother, kept in the dark, poked and prodded by creatures it did not understand. When the container finally fell into the cargo bay of the horizon's edge, the cub did not feel the rage its captors expected. It felt only one thing. It wanted to go home, but home was very far away, and the cub was alone in a strange place filled with strange smells. It did not know that the creatures on this ship were different from the ones who had heard it. It did not know that everything was about to change. The container's lock clicked open. The cub took its first step into the unknown. The alarm woke the entire ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. A computerized voice repeated the same warning over and over. Unknown life form detected in Cargo Bay 7. All personnel remain in secure areas. Security teams respond. Lieutenant Gia was already running before the second alarm sounded. She grabbed her weapon from the rack, checked the charge, and moved through the corridors like a shadow. Behind her, 4 security officers followed in tight formation. "What do we know?" she asked through her communicator. "Something came through the hull," the bridge officer replied. "Sensors show a biological signature, large, moving fast." "How large?" "About the size of a big dog." "Maybe bigger?" Gia frowned. A dog-sized creature should not cause this much concern. But her instincts told her this was no ordinary animal. The ambassador's warning echoed in her mind. The Velthari were planning something. "Pull up everything we have on dangerous fauna in this sector," she ordered. "And seal the ventilation shafts. If this thing is a predator, I don't want it getting into the air system." They reached Cargo Bay 7. The doors were closed, the security locks engaged. Through the small window, Gia could see only darkness. The lights inside had been smashed. "It's intelligent," she whispered. "It killed the lights." She signaled her team to take positions. Then she opened the door. The cargo bay was a mess. Crates had been knocked over. Scratch marks covered the walls. Something had moved through here with great speed and strength. But the creature itself was gone. Where did it go? One of her officers asked. Gia looked up. A ventilation grate hung open, bent and broken. "It's in the walls?" For the next 2 hours, the crew of the Horizon's Edge lived in fear. The creature moved through the ship like a ghost. Sensors would detect it in one place, and by the time security arrived, it had vanished. Crew members locked themselves in their quarters. The corridors, usually filled with conversation and laughter, became silent and tense. Captain Taiwan watched the hunt from the bridge, his face calm but his hands tight on his chair. He had requested information from the computer about predatory species, and one name kept appearing, Kathrani, a nightmare creature from a death world. If that was what stalked his ship, they were in serious trouble. "How do we kill it?" he asked Dr. Doan, who had come to the bridge. The xenobiologist shook his head. "Their scales are extremely resistant to weapons fire. Their venom can kill in minutes. Honestly, Captain, if it's fully grown, I'm not sure we can kill it. And if it's not fully grown, then maybe we have a chance. But we would need to corner it first." In the hydroponics bay, Ensign Miri had not heard about any of this. She had fallen asleep among her plants, a bad habit she had never managed to break. When she woke up, her communicator was dead, its battery drained. She did not know about the alarms or the hunt, or the monster in the walls. She only knew that something was watching her. Miri felt it before she saw it. A presence in the shadows between the grow lights. A sound that was almost too quiet to hear. Breathing, not human breathing. Something else. Slowly, very slowly, she turned her head. The creature crouched between two rows of tomato plants. It was the most terrifying thing Miri had ever seen. 6 legs, scales that shimmered like oil on water. Eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. Fangs that could tear through metal. And yet, it was shaking. Miri had grown up on a farm. She had seen frightened animals before. Horses that had been abused. Dogs that had been abandoned. She knew what fear looked like, even in creatures very different from herself. This monster was afraid. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to scream, to call for help. But something deeper, something that came from years of caring for living things, told her to stay still. She sat down slowly. The creature tensed but did not attack. "Hey there," Miri whispered. Her voice trembled, but she kept it soft. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature made a sound. It was not a growl. It was something else. A whimper. A cry. The translator in Miri's ear could not find words for it, but her heart understood. Loneliness, fear, pain. Miri extended her hand slowly. Palm up, just as she would with any frightened animal. "It's okay. You're safe here. I promise." The creature stared at her for a long moment. Its amber eyes searched her face, looking for the threat that was not there. Then, step by careful step, it moved closer. When it finally pressed its head against her hand, Miri let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. The scales were warm, almost hot. The creature's body trembled against her fingers. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered. "What did they do to you?" The creature made that sound again and pressed closer. Before Miri fully understood what was happening, the monster had curled up against her leg, 6 legs tucked beneath its body, and closed its glowing eyes. It was asleep when Lieutenant Gia burst through the door 3 minutes later, weapon raised and ready to fire. She stopped so suddenly that the officers behind her nearly crashed into her back. The monster was there. The terrifying predator they had hunted for hours. And it was asleep in the lap of a young botanist who was gently stroking its head while it purred. "Don't shoot," Miri said quietly. "Please, it's just scared." Gia stared. Her weapon slowly lowered. In 20 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Dr. Dohan pushed past the security officers. His scanner was already out, reading the creature's biological signs. What he found made him go pale. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "this creature is barely weaned. It's malnourished. There are signs of rough handling, possible abuse." He looked at Gia with something like anger in his gentle eyes. "This isn't a predator sent to kill us. It's a baby that was thrown away." Gia looked at the creature, at Miri, at the scanner readings. The pieces clicked together in her mind. "The Velthari," she said. "They did this." Dr. Doan nodded. "They sent us a weapon. But they made one mistake." He watched as Miri continued to comfort the sleeping cub. They forgot what humans do with frightened animals. In the cargo bay, forgotten among the scattered crates, a tiny device blinked silently. A camera recording everything, sending every image back to the Velthari ship hiding in the darkness of space. High. Commander Torvin watched the footage with growing disbelief. The human was petting the Kathrani. The Kathrani was purring. This was not possible, but it was happening anyway. 3 days passed, and the monster became family. It started with a name. Miri called her Bomi, which meant spring in her grandmother's language. It seemed to fit. The creature was young and full of new life, even if that life came wrapped in scales and fangs. At first, only Miri could touch her. Bomi would growl at anyone else who came too close, her amber eyes tracking every movement. But hunger changes everything, even for apex predators. The first breakthrough came in the mess hall. Bomi had followed Miri there, staying close to the only creature on this strange ship who had shown her kindness. When the cook, a large man named Junho, saw the deadly predator enter his kitchen, he nearly fainted, but Junho was also a man who could not stand to see any living thing go hungry. "She looks thin," he said, keeping his distance but studying Bomi with professional eyes. "What does she eat?" "Meat, I think," Miri said. "Dr. Doan says her species are carnivores?" Junho disappeared into his kitchen. He returned with a plate of raw protein strips, the kind they used for special meals. "Good quality, expensive." He placed the plate on the floor and stepped back quickly. Bomi's head turned. Her nostrils flared. For a moment she was still. Then she moved to the plate and began to eat with a hunger that was almost painful to watch. "Poor baby," Junho whispered. "When did you last have a real meal?" After that, Junho became Bomi's second favorite human. He saved the best cuts of meat for her, prepared them himself, and left them in a special bowl near the kitchen door. Bomi would come by 3 times a day, eat her meal, and sometimes stay to watch Junho cook through the window. He started talking to her while he worked. Just as Miri talked to her plants, the crew began to relax. Dr. Dohan spent hours studying Bomi, always with Miri present to keep her calm. What he discovered amazed him. The Kethrani were not mindless killers. They were pack animals with complex social structures and deep emotional bonds. They communicated through sounds, body language, and even chemical signals. "The Velthari got everything wrong," he explained to Captain Taiwan. They only ever encountered Kethrani in combat, when the creatures were defending their territory. They assumed that aggression was their natural state. But look at her. He gestured to where Bomi was napping in a patch of warm light from the engine room vents. "She's not aggressive at all. She just wanted safety and food and companionship." Captain Taiwan studied the sleeping predator. "She's still dangerous." "Of course she is. So are dogs. So are cats. Humans on Earth domesticated wolves, Captain. We made them our partners. Our family." Do smiled. "Maybe we see something in predators that other species miss." The captain was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Keep studying her, but keep her away from critical systems. And if she shows any sign of turning dangerous—" "I know, but I don't think she will." As the days passed, Bomi grew bolder. She explored the ship, always returning to Miri, but wandering further each time. The crew learned her habits. She liked warm places. She hated loud noises. She would chase anything small and fast, which meant the maintenance drones learned to move very slowly. When she was nearby, she also brought gifts the first time it happened. Miri woke up to find a dead drone on her pillow. It was completely destroyed, torn apart by 6 sets of claws and teeth. Bomi sat beside it, looking proud. Did you bring me breakfast?" Miri asked. Unsure whether to laugh or cry, Bomi made a happy chirping sound and pushed the dead drone closer. After that, gifts appeared regularly. Dead drones. Pieces of cloth torn from supply crates. Once, memorably, someone's missing sock. Lieutenant Jia, who had been searching for that sock for 2 days, did not know whether to be annoyed or impressed. "She's treating us like her pack," Dr. Doan explained. "Bringing food to share. Protecting her territory. These are bonding behaviors." Jia looked at Bomi, who was currently trying to fit herself into a box half her size. The deadly predator's rear end stuck out at an undignified angle. Her tail wagged slowly. "She's ridiculous," Jia said. But there was warmth in her voice. That night, Jia left her door open. Just a crack. Just enough for a certain 6-legged creature to squeeze through. When Miri found them the next morning, Bomi was curled on Jia's bunk and Jia's hand rested on the predator's side. Both were sound asleep. Captain Taiwan heard about this. He said nothing, but he stopped closing his ready room door quite so firmly. 2 days later, he entered his quarters to find Bomi asleep in his command chair. She had dragged a blanket onto it and was curled into a perfect circle. Purring so loudly that the vibration could be felt through the floor, Taiwan stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed, walked to the secondary chair, and sat down to finish his reports. "You're very comfortable there." I see, he said dryly. "Bo." I opened one amber eye, chirped contentedly, and went back to sleep, across the cold void of space. High Commander Torvin watched all of this through hidden cameras. His officers stood behind him, no one daring to speak. The footage showed humans treating the Kethrani like a pet, a child, a member of their family. It was impossible, unthinkable. The Kethrani were killers, weapons of pure destruction. The humans should be dead by now, torn apart by those fangs, poisoned by that venom. Instead, they were teaching it tricks and giving it a name. "This changes nothing," Torvin said, though his voice was less certain than before. "The creature still has its nature. We simply need to remind it." He touched a control panel. Deep within his ship, a signal was prepared, a frequency that would reach the implant buried in the Kethrani cub's spine, an implant that the humans did not know existed. "When I activate this," Torvin explained, "the creature will become what it was meant to be. The humans will see its true nature. They will understand that they cannot tame the wild. They cannot befriend the predator." His officers nodded, though some of them looked uncomfortable. Torvin did not notice. He was too focused on the screen, where a young human woman was scratching behind the Kethrani's ears while it purred in her lap. "Enjoy your peace," he whispered. "It will not last." His claw hovered over the activation switch. The scream came without warning. Miri was in the hydroponics bay, working on her plants while Bomi dozed nearby. It was a peaceful afternoon, the kind they had grown used to over the past week. Then Bomi made a sound that Miri had never heard before. It was not a growl or a purr or a chirp. It was a shriek of pure agony, a sound so terrible that Miri's heart nearly stopped. Bomi convulsed. Her body twisted in ways that seemed impossible. Her claws tore at the floor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. And her eyes, those warm amber eyes that had looked at Miri with trust and affection, changed. They became wild, empty, filled with something that was not Bomi at all. "Bomi?" Miri reached for her. "Bomi, what's wrong?" The creature that had been Bomi lunged at her. Miri threw herself backward, crashing through a row of tomato plants. Claws sliced the air where her face had been. Bomi, or the thing that used to be Bomi, screamed again and attacked everything in reach. Plants were shredded. Equipment was destroyed. The walls ran with green juice from crushed vegetables. Miri ran. She had no choice. This was not her friend. This was a monster, exactly what the Velthari had wanted all along. The alarm started seconds later. Red lights, warnings, crew members screaming for security. In the engine room, Bomi attacked an engineer named Sunho. He survived only because he managed to seal himself inside a maintenance closet. The creature's claws left deep marks in the door, inches from his face. In the medical bay, she caught a nurse named Yurin, 3 deep cuts across her arm before Dr. Doan managed to seal the door. The venom worked fast. Yurin collapsed, her breathing shallow, her face turning gray. Lieutenant Jia mobilized every security officer on the ship. They tracked Bomi through the corridors, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. She attacked and vanished, leaving chaos behind her. Captain Taiwan watched from the bridge, his calm finally cracking. "How do we stop her?" "We can't," Jia replied through the cum. "She's too fast. And she seems to know the ship as well as we do." There was pain in her voice. She had grown to care for Bomi. They all had. "Captain, I don't think we have a choice. We need to wait." Dr. Doan's voice cut through. He was in his lab, surrounded by scanner readings and medical data. "Something's wrong. This isn't natural behavior." "She's trying to kill us," Jia snapped. "That seems pretty natural for a predator." "No, you don't understand. Look at her readings." He transmitted the data to every screen on the ship. "Her brain chemistry is completely disrupted. Her adrenaline levels are impossibly high. And there's a signal, a frequency I've never seen before. It's coming from inside her body?" Captain Taiwan leaned forward. "What kind of signal?" "I don't know. But it's artificial. Someone is doing this to her." In the darkness of the ventilation system, Bomi crawled through the narrow spaces, her body moving without her control. Deep inside her mind, behind the wall of artificial rage, the real Bomi screamed. She did not want to hurt anyone. These were her pack, her family, but her body would not obey her. Something else was in control. The signal pulsed through the implant in her spine, drowning out her thoughts with red fire and endless anger. Dr. Dohan worked frantically. He pulled apart every scan, every reading, every piece of data he had gathered over the past week. And finally he found it. A tiny device, no bigger than a grain of rice, embedded at the base of Bomi's skull. Velthary technology. Those monsters, he whispered. His gentle face twisted with an anger he rarely showed. They'd put a control chip in a baby. He broadcast his findings to the entire ship. When Lieutenant Gia heard, she stopped running and stood completely still. Her hands shook. Not with fear. With fury. Can we remove it? She asked. Not while she's conscious. The signal needs to be stopped first. There has to be a transmitter somewhere. Something maintaining the frequency. Gia thought fast. The Velthary had been watching them. And then devices. Hidden technology. Something on the ship that did not belong. The cargo bay, she said. That's where she came aboard. Search everything. 3 security officers swept the cargo bay while Gia directed them by communicator. They found the camera first, then the signal relay hidden inside a crate. Gia destroyed both with her bare hands, smashing them against the wall until nothing remained but broken pieces. The signal stopped. Somewhere in the ventilation system, Bomi collapsed. The red fire in her mind faded. She lay in the darkness, wounded and confused, not understanding what had happened. She only knew that she had hurt people. Her people. Her pack. She whimpered, a sound of pure grief. Miri heard it. She was hiding in a storage room, her hands shaking, tears streaming down her face. When she heard that sound, something inside her moved past the fear. Where is she? She asked through her communicator. Miri, stay where you are, Gia ordered. We don't know if she's still dangerous. She's not. Miri was already moving. That wasn't her. You know, it wasn't her. But Miri had already turned off her communicator. She found Bomi in the deepest part of the ventilation system, curled in the darkest corner, as far from everyone as she could get. The creature was covered in scratches, some from her attacks, some self-inflicted. Blood dripped from her claws. Her breathing was ragged and broken. When Miri approached, Bomi growled. But it was weak, defensive, the growl of an animal that expected to be hurt. Miri sat down slowly, just as she had done that first night. She held up the blanket she had brought, the one Bomi liked to sleep on, the one that smelled like engine room, warmth, and safety. It's me, she whispered. It's okay. I know that wasn't you. The Bomi's amber eyes found hers. There was so much pain in them, so much guilt. The creature made a sound like sobbing, something no one would have believed a Kathrani could make. Miri opened her arms. Bomi crawled forward, slowly, trembling. She pressed her head against Miri's chest and let out a cry that seemed to carry all the pain of the past hours. Miri held her. She stroked her scales. She whispered soft words that meant nothing and everything at the same time. I've got you. You're safe. I've got you. On the bridge, Captain Taiwan listened to the silence that followed the chaos. 3 crew members were injured. The ship was damaged. A creature they had grown to love had been turned into a weapon against them, and he knew exactly who was responsible. Open a channel to the Galactic Council, he said. His voice was ice. Absolute 0. Priority 1. Emergency session. The communications officer hesitated. Sir, are you sure? An emergency session will require... I'm sure. Taiwan stood, straightening his uniform. The Velthary just declared war on my ship. It's time the galaxy knew about it. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. 147 species filled the Great Hall, their representatives sitting in curved rows that rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Some were massive, taking up entire sections. Some were tiny, watching through magnifying screens. All of them stared at the evidence floating in the center of the room. Captain Taiwan stood at the speaking platform, his uniform crisp despite the exhaustion in his eyes. Behind him, holographic displays showed everything. The implant removed from Bomi's spine, the Valkyrie signal relay, medical records of the injured crew, and footage, hours of footage, showing a frightened cub learning to trust and a crew learning to love. "This is what the Valkyrie Dominion did," Taiwan said. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "They took a baby from its home. They put a device in its brain. They sent it to kill us. And when it chose peace instead, they tried to force it into violence." High Commander Torvin rose from the Valkyrie section. His armored body clicked with barely controlled rage. "This is absurd. The human captain presents no proof that the proof is in your own technology." Dr. Doan stepped forward, holding a data crystal. "The implant's design matches Valkyrie military specifications exactly. The signal frequency is registered to your fleet. And your surveillance devices were hidden aboard our ship, recording everything." The chamber erupted in whispers. Species that rarely agreed on anything began talking among themselves. The evidence was clear. The Valkyrie had been caught, but Ambassador Yuna was not finished. She walked to the speaking platform, small and calm among the giants that filled the room. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but somehow it reached everyone. "The Valkyrie believed they understood humans," she said. "They thought we were weak, soft, easily frightened. So they sent us a predator, expecting us to run." She paused, looking around the chamber. "They were wrong." She touched a control, and the display changed. It showed Earth, blue oceans, green forests, and images of creatures that made several representatives gasp. "This is a Volf," Yuna continued. "An apex predator from our homeworld. Humans domesticated them thousands of years ago. We turned them into companions, partners, family." The image changed to show dogs of every shape and size standing beside humans. "This is a tiger. This is a bear. This is a shark." Each image showed humans interacting with creatures that could easily kill them. "We do not fear predators, council members. We understand them." The chamber was completely silent now. The Valkyrie looked at the Kathrani and saw only a weapon, Yuna said. "They assumed that aggression was its nature because they only ever met it in battle. They never thought to try anything else." She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "Humans did try something else. We offered a frightened child food and safety and kindness. And do you know what happened?" The display showed Bomi, healthy and healed, curled up in Captain Taiwan's command chair. Her amber eyes were peaceful. Her tail wagged slowly. "She chose us," Yuna said. "Not because we forced her. Not because we controlled her. Because we offered her something the Valkyrie never could. Love." The word hung in the air. "You sent us a monster," Yuna concluded, turning to face Torvin directly. "And we gave her a name. We gave her a home. We gave her a family. That is what you cannot understand about humanity. We do not conquer through fear. We conquer through connection." The vote was overwhelming. The Valkyrie Dominion received the harshest censure in Council history. Their territorial claims in the outer systems were suspended. Their military activities would be monitored for the next decade. And the Kathrani species, once considered nothing but monsters, were reclassified as protected. Torvin left the chamber in disgrace, his officers trailing behind him. He had wanted to prove that humans were weak. Instead, he had shown the entire galaxy something much more dangerous. Humans made friends with monsters. Aboard the horizon's edge, life returned to normal. Or rather, to a new kind of normal that included a six-legged apex predator who demanded belly rubs and left dead. Maintenance drones as gifts. Dr. Dohan published his research on the Kathrani, sharing everything he had learned. Scientists across the galaxy began to reconsider their assumptions about predatory species. Some even started talking about establishing peaceful contact with the Kathrani. Homeworld, Lieutenant Jia applied for a pet license. When asked what kind of pet, she simply wrote, unusual and dared anyone to question it. Junho. The cook developed an entire menu of Bomi-approved meals. He refused to admit that he talked to her while he cooked. Even though everyone had heard him doing it, Captain Taiwan gave up his command chair completely. He ordered a second one installed next to it, officially designated for non-human crew members. Bomi approved. And Miri, young ensign Miri, who had first reached out to a frightened creature in the dark, was promoted to Chief of Xenofauna Relations. It was a position that had not existed before. The captain created it just for her on a quiet evening. A week after the council session, Miri sat in the observation deck. Stars streamed past the windows as the ship traveled toward new discoveries. Bomi lay in her lap, all 6 legs tucked beneath her body, purring so loudly that the deck VIBRATED. Lieutenant Gia walked in, carrying 2 cups of tea. She sat beside Miri and handed her one. "You know," Gia said, "I never liked pets before." Miri smiled. "She's not a pet, no?" Gia looked at Bomi, at the fangs and scales and claws that could kill in seconds. "What is she then?" Miri stroked Bomi's head gently. The creature made a happy chirping sound and pressed closer. "She's crew?" Gia laughed softly. It was a good sound, warm and real. "I suppose she is." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Bomi yawned, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth, then settled deeper into Miri's arms and closed her amber eyes. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between stars, other species would hear about what happened on the horizon's edge. They would learn about the humans who adopted a monster. They would wonder how it was possible. And some of them perhaps would begin to understand. Predators across the galaxy had learned to fear humanity. Not for their weapons. Not for their ships. Not for their technology. For something far more dangerous. Their stubborn, impossible, absolutely ridiculous capacity to love. On the bridge, Captain Taiwan reviewed reports while his empty command chair sat beside him. He glanced at it, then at the stars ahead, and allowed himself a small smile. "Ship's log," he said quietly. "The horizon's edge continues on her mission. Crew complement, 63 humans and 1 Kethrani. All systems normal. All crew accounted for." He paused. "Even the furry one." From somewhere deep in the ship, a happy purr rumbled through the walls. The stars waited ahead, full of mystery and danger and wonder, but the horizon's edge was ready. After all, they had a monster on their side now, and she was family.